This is simply vegetable glycerine. It's sweet, it's lovely, no nicotine, simply vaping, plain vegetable glycerine. It's lovely. Come vape with me. I want to talk about when I was young. I'm 72 now, but when I was young, things were very different. And I think we now live in a completely daft and insane world. I'll tell you how things were different. When I was young, there were very few signs anywhere. There were signs in a library that said silence. There were signs outside toilets, and they said WC or toilets. There was no commercial food. There was no commercial dog food. You couldn't buy things in a shop pre-prepared, not much. And so everyone made their own food. Everyone smoked everywhere. Even the vicar smoked. Doctors smoked. And there was no banning of smoking anywhere. There was no internet. Skype would have seemed like something from a science fiction movie. And there was no war on drugs. In fact, I remember a man I worked with who'd become an addict from the Second World War, and he regularly went and got his supply from the local hospital. There were no seat belts, no helmets. As a young mother, I remember the fear I had when I first read in the paper in the 1970s that a new ice age was coming. That was my first big fear that came through from the experts who were now producing this information that we're going into an ice age. And now, of course, the world is far more complex. There are notices everywhere. No vaping, no smoking, no skateboarding, no helmets, no hoodies, no drinking, and it just goes on and on and on. Where you've got notices, you've got bans. Where you've got bans, you've got legislation. We've entered an age of control, and we back our control up by what is considered science from the experts. Science from the experts. When I was young, there were charities and church groups all over the place that raised money on a Saturday by selling cakes or having beetle drives or something, and they helped the people. Now we have massive charities, lobby groups, big commercial charities really is what you could call them, that lobby Parliament to have their regulations, their do-gooding embedded in legislation. And this is an error. This is leading us to being ruled by the do-gooders. And the do-gooders do things like proclaim a war on drugs. The war on drugs has caused such violence, such suffering, such pain. If you simply legalized drugs, it would take the problem away. Our prisons are full of prisoners there, not because they are criminals, but because they have used or they've sold drugs. So it seems to me these wars on various things that the do-gooders have got Parliament to make legislation about is an error in our modern society. There's a war on smoking and a war on vaping, despite the fact that a quarter of the population vape or smoke. That is a legislated and legalized persecution of a minority group of the population. And of course, it causes the people being persecuted discomfort and shame. So the war on vaping is a spin-off from the war on smoking, And the do-gooders have made massive, what I would say, commercial institutions. They're all self-promoting industries, really. They employ people, they pay good money. Everybody is promoting something so that they can keep their jobs in the future. They're paragons of virtue. It is safe and secure for us to feel we're guided by the experts. The experts tell us how to live, what to eat, what medications to take, our lifestyle, that we mustn't smoke, we mustn't drink, we must love everybody, we must exercise. And so we're in this place now which I find very uncomfortable and not normal and not natural, where if we are not conforming to what the experts say we should do, we take on board a massive amount of guilt. Basically, we are not thinking through the consequences of over-legislation. And where it could start is simply by relaxing and throwing away and getting rid of, releasing ourselves from all the legislation, so that our lives could get back to a wonderful sort of freedom, a relaxed happiness, where there are few signs anywhere, that only libraries say silence and only toilets say WC. Thanks for vaping with me.